Melanie.
Yes, sir.
How many do you have in your queue?
Just
Very good. Thank you.
everybody gets.
Hello, this is Steve Sturr.
Morning, Stephen Sturr. Are you still out of town?
Morning. Yes, sir, I'm out of town. Not far, but I am out of town.
Well, hope the weather is well.
How you doing, Judge?
I'm well, thank you.
Oh, yes, it's sunshiny, partly cloudy.
Good. Well, you are live and broadcasting very effectively throughout the courtroom. So welcome to the
I'm
meeting.
good.
And we've got about a minute before we'll start. And I think you're the only one that's in the call-in queue. Everybody else is pretty much present. Well, good morning, everyone. As presiding official of the Commissioners Court, it is my pleasure to welcome each of you. This meeting has been duly called in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, and we want to take a moment to welcome the guests that are present with us this morning, and we have a variety. We also have Commissioner Sturr, who has joined us by way of telephone, and we have a full complement of the court that's participating in that. And it's the practice of this court to exercise an invocation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance today to the American flag. This is a special meeting. It's not a regular meeting of the Commissioners Court, but we want to take an opportunity to invite anybody who's offended by or prefers not to participate in our practice, step outside for a moment or mute your phone, and then you can rejoin us after we finish with the pledge and the invocation. This morning, I've asked Mr. Billy Reed, longtime member of this county, would be near over 50 years, wouldn't it be?
It would be over.
To offer our invocation.
Miss Donnie's just babysitting me.
So, with that being said, Mr. Reed, would you offer us an invocation, and I'll lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag following.
Hey, dear Lord, we love you so much, God. We just praise you for the fact that you let us be here today. Dear Lord, we ask you to be in this courtroom today as these men make their decisions and for the betterment of everybody in the entire county, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Amen.
Salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, United States of America, which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Stephen, you were a little bit behind the rest of us. All right.
Always glad.
Well, good morning, everyone, again, and I want to just call to your attention. We've gotten some information that we need to move forward with some action in regard to a matter. So the special meeting has been called by the Commissioners Court for that particular purpose. I have put a couple of items on the agenda for your consideration, and we'll see how the approval goes forth from this. However, it is the public comments portion of the agenda that we would start with first. And our clerk, Donnie Gregory, has received some requests to address the court this morning. If you will notice on your copy of the agenda, that does limit to a 3-minute presentation. And with that being said, do we have someone who signed up by chance?
We do.
And who would be
We
first?
have about 5, and the first one that signed up was Dr. Tammy Boyd.
Okay, go ahead. Feel welcome to use the podium there.
To be clear, you're okay for the purpose of speaking if I remove this mask?
Certainly.
Thank you. So first I want to say thanks to Ken Joe for these lovely masks that I'm sporting here today.
Quite stylish.
And I'm going to utilize my phone just to kind of have some talking points that I've recorded. And just to make sure, has everyone received this handout? I think we had,
Yes.
should be on the
Yes.
page. Okay, awesome. So first of all, as Judge Blanchett said, I'm Dr. Tammy Boyette, Superintendent of Schools, Warren ISD. I have with me today our CFO, Terry Lean, our board president, Rocky Burks, trustee Billy Reed, and trustee Marty Raymer. We're here today to, hold on one second. I got the wrong notes up here. I know, it can't be easy, right? Every time your phone logs out, there you go. All right, I'm gonna keep my finger on it so it doesn't time out on me. So I'm here today to do what I ask of our employees. You know, if you have a problem, you don't just come with a problem, you come also with a solution. So I'm here to present the problem, but also to present the rationale for our request and to offer solutions. So thank you for allowing me to speak today. The issue at hand is that we are here to request your support in acquiring the much-needed CRF, or Coronavirus Relief Fund, monies from the CARES Act that the state has earmarked for Operation Connectivity. This situation is dire. It's urgent because the deadline for districts to submit an order is close of business today. So a vote to table is the same thing as a no. It's very important that you understand that I'm prepared to provide you support of our claim, and for the purpose of context and background, I ask that you please turn to the green tab. And I'd like to read to you from the grant document, the program's purpose. The purpose of the Remote Learning Operation Connectivity CV-19 grant is to support Texas local education agencies' purchases of e-learning devices and home internet solutions to enable the remote learning of students during the COVID-19 pandemic. Bulk purchases will require local match, either from LEA funds, that's us, or from local coronavirus relief funds as defined by TEA. That's the funds that we're here to discuss today. I think it's very important that I share with you that as a superintendent, we meet with the Commissioner of Education every Tuesday and every Thursday for an hour. And at 3 o'clock, that message has been what's been sent to us every time, that this money is for us, that all we have to do is come and acknowledge that we'd like to make use of it and that it's available to us, that that's what this is earmarked for. That's been the messaging that's been sent to us and been given to us. I would also think it's important to share that I have superintendent friends who are already turned in receipts and received as much as 20% of their funds. They're rolling. Things are moving forward and the obstacle isn't there. So I thought it was important to share that while it may not be the same message you've received, this is the message coming to superintendents. All right. As further proof, I'd like to look to the front page, the orange tab, and I'd like to just show you the second paragraph. Due to the urgency required to maintain our position with our vendors' supply chain, please submit the completed and signed document of this agreement by close of business Tuesday, August 4th, 2020. That is today. So it was no melodramatic part on my piece. This is, I have to leave here today and either submit this or not get these funds or the devices and hotspots we need for our kids. So I wanted to show you that in the document as well. I think in addition, it's important that I mention the other resources we've already tapped as a stereotypical female, at least in this regard. When it comes to money, if I'm given some money, I spend every single dime of it. So from March to May, we were allowed to tap into some FEMA resources for mitigation. We spent money on thermal scanners. We spent money on disinfecting foggers. We spent money to feed our kids, and we fed every one of them. And Warren ISD has been held by TASBO, as an exemplar for how we fed our kids and how many we fed our kids. While many districts were having to send back federal money, we did not. We actually operated in the black during that fund. So we've been great fiscal agents. We also are required, I don't know if you know this, to have an isolation room when school starts so that a suspected COVID case student can be moved from our campuses. So another mitigation response, we purchased a portable building because we didn't have any additional space on our campuses. So again, that's mitigation. We spent a lot of money up front on mitigation because back in March to May, and even in June, our cases we weren't Houston. We weren't looking at numbers that were on the increase. We didn't see that we needed to jump in and try to go one-to-one overnight with devices, never dreaming that was going to be the expectation or the promise from the state. Normally, you phase that in over a couple of years, right? Not overnight. But then they came out with all this money, Operation Connectivity, and we had hope, great, we're gonna go this route. I want to also, I think it's important, and I know there's lots of acronyms out there for funds like ESSER and then CRF, right? The ESSER funds was a great deal of money that came from the federal to the state. They kept 95% of that. So when federally you hear how much money they funded into the state of Texas, Texas Education Agency got 95%. What we get, $8,600? About $8,600 out of all that money. So, well, that wouldn't fund this, right? They spent that money on the Texas Home Learning. So if you go to the TEA coronavirus support website, you will see all this big, huge platform called the Texas Home Learning, which is where they have stood up homeschool resources, curriculum we didn't ask for. We weren't asked how we wanted that money to be spent. We were just told 95% of it would go to support that. So I wanted to make sure that you understand that some of the funds, while it sounds like an astronomical amount, did not come to us directly. So the rationale for our requests: we need help in closing the digital divide between our families and the schools. For families that do not want to send their kids to school due to health-related concerns or who cannot afford internet, they need our help. Further, with so much uncertainty and climbing numbers of cases, we have no idea when or if our schools may be closed and we may be forced to go fully remote. I wish I had a crystal ball, to know what the future holds. But we have to be prepared for that. Without these funds, we cannot facilitate quality at-home learning. I ask that you just take a glance at the pink tab in your handout, and you will see that we're only asking for your help for about 500 devices and 500 hotspots. We have 1,200 kids. So we're carrying the bulk of this load. We're not asking you to do it all for us. We're asking you to partner with us. So our proposed resolution to this problem requires access to our portion of the $200 million the state has earmarked solely for this purpose, as we understand it. We can only access these funds if you choose to accept them today and allow us to work with the grant facilitator, Mr. Joe, to purchase devices and hotspots for our school. We must be able to take advantage of the one-to-one matching opportunity presented to us from TEA, where they pay for half of the cost and we use this grant money to pay for the other half. The bottom line, our little district has already lost over $300,000 in funding this year because Tyler County property value study failed to meet the state's requirements. I would not be here today, hat in hand, begging you for money if I had that $300,000. I could pay for it with that. But I don't. We can ill afford to lose out on $200,000 more dollars that's supposed to go to our kids. Our kids need your support today, and we're at the mercy of your decision on behalf of our county, on behalf of the county and our constituents. So we're begging you to please vote to accept the CRF funds on our behalf. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Loretta. Okay, my timer, I didn't have it set correctly, so in respect of the ones to follow, it'll be given, let's see, it was 8 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
I don't, I'm not stereotypical female in that regard too. I apologize.
We won't.
Okay. Ms. Donnie, who's next?
Eldon Franco,
Franco?
Fulton Alliance.
Yeah. New resident, new citizen of Tyler County and superintendent from Colonial. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good to be here. I've been in district about a month and a half now, so the things that are happening here were not happening where I came from. But after looking at the numbers and such, we definitely are in Warren's ballpark, I guess you could say, in the fact that the district has spent a considerable amount to educate our kids regarding buying one-to-one initiative, which Colonial was very much up on, regarding devices for students. Our biggest issue is actually going back to being able for the students to connect with the device, because some live in places where there is absolutely zero signal. And even with hotspots, there was no signal for them to get. So that brought us back to having to give, that brought us back to having to give out paper packets, which involve man hours. All total, I believe our district, even as small as it is, our district is close to $200,000 in since March, not only for educating our kids, but also in mitigation regarding disinfecting, sanitizing, chemicals, things like that we needed to get. And I could only ask that you would consider that when you make your decision regarding this CARES Act. Like I said, like Dr. Boyette said very well, that we were led to believe that this was a done deal, and that all we had to do was save our receipts, make sure that we applied to the proper channels, that the money was coming through. And so I would ask that you consider the issue at hand, that you would allow us access to the money that has been promised to us, or that has been made available to us, so that we can continue with our business. Are we going to go under? No, we're not going to go under, but it's going to make it a lot harder to budget for the things that we need to budget for normally in order to continue business as usual. And so my board would be here. They are 100% on board regarding the funds and regarding the things that have happened and going on, and our method of education and our method of taking care of our students. Again, they ask that you consider this as well. So thank you, and it's good to be here.
Thank you.
It's good to be a Bulldog.
Welcome. All right. Denise, who is next?
Elisa Meisenberg from Woodville ISD.
Good morning, Lisa.
Good morning.
Good to see you.
Thank you. Thank you as well for the opportunity to address the Commissioners Court today in regards to the CARES Act funding. I want to thank Dr. Boyette and Mr. Franco for their eloquent presentation, and I'm not going to repeat everything because they did a great job presenting the facts and the information. This also is going to impact Woodville ISD significantly in our ability to provide internet access and devices for all of our students. We are looking at, through this initiative, Operation Connectivity, costs of almost $350,000 that would come from our district funds. TEA would cover half of that, and our district would cover the additional half. So we are moving forward because this is a great opportunity. As Dr. Boyette had said, this is something that would be phased in over a number of years. We had already started that initiative moving forward, but we expected it to take us anywhere from 4 to 6 years to make this happen. With this opportunity, you can't pass it up at half the cost, so we are moving forward with it. However, we do need to have access to funds to help recoup some of that district expense. Otherwise, it is going to be hard on us, as both of them have so eloquently said, to continue to operate at the levels that we need to operate, providing both face-to-face and home learning for our students this school year. So I do want to say that TEA has directed us several times to contact our county, to contact our cities, and to work towards receiving these funds in order to help offset the costs. The decisions that you make here today are impacting a huge majority of students and county population. So we hope that you make an effort to show your commitment to supporting not just education, but to supporting the populations of Tyler County in helping us grow and develop our youth to become successful citizens.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Denise, who do you have next?
We have Billy Reed, Ward ISD.
Mr. Reed.
I do thank y'all for letting me come. The school people have given you a real good reason why we do need it. The reason I think Warren needs it worth anything is the property value study. And we have fought that. We've hired an attorney. That was of no fault of ours at all. We do not we personally agree with the state comptroller. The 100 properties that we looked at, we lost that money, and that was not our fault, money that we depended on. But I consider every one of y'all friends, so I'm gonna go a little bit different than the school business. What I don't want to happen to Warren or any of the other schools is to have us lose something over infighting in this court. If for some reason somebody has done something wrong, you know, Jacob and I were talking, sometimes you gotta do a little bit of wrong to do a whole bunch of right. If, I don't think there was any malice, if somebody has accidentally applied for this, that didn't get the right permission or whatever, we need this money. And I've never been to one of these meetings before, but I've always stayed in contact with our county, our Commissioner Nash here. And every bad thing that's ever happened to this county has been a pretty good financial windfall. Our county got lots of money out of it. Financially, the best thing ever happened to us. Now, worst thing to the timber business or to the people with homes or whatever, but for the bank account of this county, Rita and I were both a good thing for the money. And there's been lots of money spent on lots of stuff that was nice to spend it on. Warren Independent School District needs it. And when you say we're not gonna go broke, we will not go broke. But there will be some children that will not be educated. And at the end of the day, when I go to that school board meeting, that's what we fight, we get in that, in executive sessions, we fight and we argue about everything in the world, but when we come out of there, we decide, hey, we're up here to educate these children. And in the grand scheme of things, that's a lot of money, but it's really not a lot of money. And if the county okays it, and the county has to, first of all, every business in Tyler County, from the hospital down, has gotten money out of this CARES Act. Most all the privately owned businesses have got it. I don't see the government coming back wanting any of this back for the schools. But in the grand scheme of things, if it did get the county a little bit of trouble and the county had to write a check back, you wrote checks for a lot worse things than that, I can promise you. So, as far as that's concerned, unless we're reading it wrong, and y'all have somebody smarter than us, the deadline's today. If you table this thing, it's just like us not getting it. So unless y'all have some money under a rock somewhere you're gonna give us anyway, Warren needs it. And no, we're not gonna go insolvent if we don't get it. We're just not gonna be able to buy the hotspot. So there's a bunch of kids in that Fred River bottom or the backside of Ivanhoe and all, that if the judge writes one of your orders and tells Dr. Boyette, send these kids home, there's gonna be some children not educated. So that's what you gotta decide when you say, do it or not. I understand there's probably some things that weren't done exactly right, but for the greater good, I don't want to say the Robin Hood effect, you can't break the law, but for the greater good, this one time, Warren Independent School District needs this money because we've already spent it. And now you can call us a dummy if you want to, but we've already ordered the stuff because we did think it was a slam dunk. We thought it was good. Everybody else I know has gotten CARES Act. That hospital's got a big chunk, everybody. So we assumed that it was a done deal. Now, it might be done on our part, but we still need it to get the stuff. So we thank y'all.
Thank you, Drew. All right. Denise, is there anyone else?
Mr. Marty Raymond.
Right.
Good morning. I appreciate y'all letting us come in and speak before y'all. I know I feel y'all pretty well, and I know y'all are in the position y'all are in because people trust y'all, know y'all gonna make the right decisions for the community. And right now, we're in a position, I'm on the school board in Warren with these fine gentlemen here, and we don't always agree on everything, but I can tell you right now, we stand together. And right now is the time that we all need to stand together. I implore y'all to make the decision that's going to benefit all these students in Tyler County because it's going to affect the future for a long time. And we really need y'all on board and voting our way. And I ask and beg y'all to please come together and make a decision that's going to benefit our students. I thank y'all.
Thank you. Denise, is there anyone else?
No, sir.
Okay. Well, that takes care of our public comments, and at this time, we're going to go to the consider, approve, and informational section of our agenda. I did place this on the agenda, gentlemen, as I think we've all come to know. We had a a time-sensitive time. Jackie, thank you for catching that oversight. Ken and I have been working a variety of different things, and so at this time, Ken, if you'd like to speak to this, it has been our practice in times past that we hear the information first, then we put a motion and a second into place, we deliberate on it, and then vote on it. So I think normal parliamentary procedures is you put the motion on the floor, you get a second if there is, and then you go into the discussion. But for presentation and continuity, Ken, would you mind just stepping up and sharing background information of how we came to today?
Okay, I did make a few copies for everybody here. Y'all do you think, Mayor, did you give them these?
Yeah.
This one? It's this one, the packet I had the other day. And while those are passed out, I have a personal note. I want to apologize first to the court and to y'all. I've been promoting and championing this since the beginning, and last 2 months being minimum. And I want to fully accept that champion based on, Mr. Reed, what you said. Grant facilitators, that probably won't be me, I'm just the champion. But beside the point, I was promoting this and it had not gone through the proper procedures. So I want to apologize to the superintendents here in the court here that at no time was that a attempt to circumvent or do anything outside the rules of the court. Okay, so, all right. We learned about this, I guess, well, I'm throw yourself at the mercy of the court, right? No, I'm just kidding. We learned about this, and there was a lot of discussion initially to not participate in this. I'm not going to lie to you. Before we knew a lot about it, there was discussion to do it, to not do it. Were we going to incur enough money to go through the, quite literally, y'all, grants or headaches? If you've worked on many, you know they can be a real pain. There was discussion to kind of go ahead and not do it because the amount of money being spent by the county was not going to be worth those headaches. So as it moved on, kind of in June, we learned about it. And the packet that I just handed out has what is on the TDM website for the coronavirus, this block of money. And as I was looking at it, I thought, this has money for schools. And it's, so I'm not going to read you sections, but there is a thing in there about connectivity stuff, okay? At that point in time, we pulled in the mayors and we pulled in the superintendents into one meeting and talked about this because each city also gets an allotment of money. Y'all have the page that has Tyler County, and it has what our total allotment is, our population, total allotment, and the 20% of what we would get up front. After that, we basically said, let's do it, okay? And I say was me, that group we were meeting with, the judge, we did the application. It was an online one-pager, probably the easiest grant application I've ever seen in my life. We submitted, we sent in the paperwork to get it direct deposited, and I learned last week we had it direct deposited. So that's kind of how we got where we are right now. There are stipulations on what it's spent on, COVID mitigation / preparedness or response. You can't spend it on other things, but that remote learning connectivity issue is one of those ideas. That's kind of where we are. That's where we got where we are. I mean, I can answer questions, and again, I have a few extra of these if everybody up here has one. Okay. Okay, I'll try to answer the question.
You say the connectivity program, it's what I've read, yes, it is part of the relief fund, but is it the part of the 80%? Because the way I read it, 80%, which is 179,000, has to be spent on some specific items. And it doesn't say that connectivity program is part of that.
Okay.
You follow where I'm at?
Examples of eligible expenditures in the packet that I
Yeah, but it says eligible, it doesn't say whether it's eligible for out of the 80%, or it has to come out of 75%, or it has to come out of 25%. It doesn't say that. The only thing it says is, there's 3 items listed that the 80% has to be dedicated to.
It's 75%. It's 75% of it has to be spent on a list that,
There's 3 items that's on that list, right? And my question is the connectivity stuff, can that be money come out of that 75%? Because it doesn't say, I have not found it.
it's the 25%, and can I ask him to jump in here? He talked to Monty Dozier, who's with Texas A&M, and they're our go-to people, and he talked to them today, because the 75, 25.
The reason why
is
I'm
not on this.
questioning this, guys, is there's 879,000 available in the 80%. The 25% is 175,000.
Right.
And if the connectivity program will only come out of the 175,000, it's with 5 school districts.
Right.
What are we doing?
But,
Uh,
I can speak on that. I talked to Monty this morning. Monty Dozier is the head of, he's the, what's his full title, in disaster and something. He's got a 10-penny title.
yeah.
He sent me this document, just a few minutes ago, and I shared it with Ken. What Commissioner Nash is referring to, on this, quick fact sheet, it says the subrecipient agrees that a minimum of 75% of its allocation will be spent in categories of medical expenses, public health expenses, and payroll expenses for employees substantially dedicated to mitigating or responding to the public emergency. The remainder of the allotment may be spent on any categories provided within the Treasury guidance. Monty said that there is no doubt today that technology is considered an item 4 expenditure, which is expenses to facilitate compliance with public health. TDM is arguing with the feds that it should be moved to a public 3 expense, which is education. He expects it to be changed. Today,
I didn't know this morning.
today, it's an item 4 and it has to come out of the 25%. But he expects it to be changed. He expects it to be moved. But today, Commissioner Nash, you're right. But Monty told me this morning that I can speak on his behalf, that he expects it to be changed. But TDM is arguing with the Fed right now because, I mean, y'all know, and the principal, I mean, the superintendents and school board members have certainly spoken to, I don't need to tell y'all anything about the need for internet accessibility. Today, it's a 25% item. He expects it to be changed, but you are right. Today, it falls in that 25%.
Well, I was looking, trying to find that.
And I just tried to send it to Ken. I'll have to get to my computer because I'm not savvy enough to forward this from my phone, but I'll send this to each of
But I
y'all.
think, my opinion is, I think, I'm good with going ahead and approving. Pursue this, but with the understanding that there may not be that much money there.
And this is the other thing that Monty wanted to make sure that I stress to y'all, is that compliance is on the county as a whole. It is not on the individual school districts. If the school district spends 100% of their money on technology and the county is fine with that, that's fine. The county as a whole has to meet that 75-25 requirement.
Well, but if the school district spend more than 25%.
Right.
The county's
Now-
gonna be,
And now I don't want to speak on behalf of anybody I don't have a right to, but the building that Dr. Boyette referenced, and I don't have a price tag on it. Monty told me it absolutely, it was an item 3 issue. It absolutely fit in the 75. The technology he thinks will be changed. But this, and I don't want to take time that's not mine, but that is all a bookkeeping thing after the fact. It does not change the yes or no as far as I'm concerned. It's a bookkeeping thing after the fact. So, like I said, that's my comment.
And he told me about the 75-25 thing, literally in the lobby before I walked in. And because on the CRF TDM webpage, which is what I've distributed a copy of, it does not mention that anywhere. And so,
During this. During this,
ignoring that.
from TDA.
So,
Ian, where we got it,
Well,
the meeting brings our terms and conditions.
okay,
And I just want to say real quick, I think you got some information, and me and the treasurer were trying to block this. We're not, we're just trying to make sure that everything is legally and
Yes, ma'am.
properly done, so when 10 years down the road, they come back and audit, we've got the proper documentation that we need. That's all we need.
did you have a question, Judge? You started, both of y'all started at the same time.
What I was going to say is, when the governor called a conference with county judges and mayors, and he had communicated this throughout the entire state, he had a term that he used that the federal government, by way of the treasurer, because that's where this is coming from. It's coming down through the state. The state is actually going to be the recipient of 11.24 billion with a B. The state of Texas carved out 6.19 billion for themselves. 12 counties who have a population in excess of 500,000 got a direct distribution of the money, as did the 5 cities in the state of Texas that were in excess of 500,000. And that left a total out of the 11.24 billion of 1.85 billion for the remaining amount of counties and cities in the entire state of Texas. And as Mr. Patrick explained to us on that day, on that call, that they met between the House and the Senate, and they figured that should come up to about $55 per person for the remaining amount of population in the state of Texas. So Tyler County had this $879,010 as its allocation. The governor went on further and said, all you have to do is ask for the 20% and it will be directly sent to you. But be aware, the Treasury has the authority to claw back any of this that they choose. And Jackie has been through about 7 or 8 audits since she's been in office on mitigation money. And to your point, Billy, that millions of dollars in these grants we were able to resource. And was it around 80,000 that we had to, that was de-obligated by the end? So we had to come up with that. But there's been a variety of years that the federal government, since that point, has put some very stringent guidelines on what qualifies and what does not. Ken and I had multiple conversations. Initially, as he said, we just did not want to go through the headache of going through this experience. Then when it was elevated to the level where the cities had the authority, and some of the mayors had indicated inside Tyler County that they had intentions of pursuing their allotment. Then the conversation began to move towards the school districts have eligible projects and expenses associated with this money. So after the conversation, and we just teed it up with the superintendents and the mayors says, hey, a couple of them, we're going to pursue this. I think they're all on board now. They're pursuing their allocation. So what's before us right now is a completion of an activity that we started that Ken referenced. And today, the completion of this application process is an action which is going to be on the agenda before us. Just simply for this governing body to say, yes, we are going to participate in this. We're going to distribute that, but there's got to be a method. And that's why Ken said we need a second action item to indicate that we have to have a committee to determine how the funds should be distributed to the participating entities. So that's the urgency of the special agenda for the action for these two things. And as everyone has referenced, it's time sensitive. Fortunately, Jackie got back in time. She was looking through this. Leanne had received it. She has the money right there for the $175,802. It's sitting there. It can all go back. I mean, we haven't spent any of it yet. May not be able to spend any of it in turn. We don't know. But are we going to participate or are we not was what we were faced with making a decision of today. So with that being said, gentlemen, I would respectfully request to put into motion a affirmative action to participate in the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act as has been discussed this morning, and I'll await a second.
I'll second it, however, I think Buck has something to say.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and acknowledge Buck's second, and that takes us into deliberation or conversation, so please continue.
Well, just from my perspective, I kind of see it as Mr. Nash did over there as far as the 25%. If you come up and divide 25 or 5 school districts by the 175, am I correct? That's what we got right now. That's only $35,000 a piece, but it's that much. And as a former educator, you know, I want to do what's right for the kids, and I want y'all to know that. I've had numerous phone calls from these 2 districts being in my precinct. And like I say, for the kids, you know, whatever we have to do to get the ball rolling. I know it's unfortunate that maybe in the way it was handled, maybe we didn't know about it when it was needful, and it could have already been past this point. But that doesn't matter. We have a deadline today, and we either have to do the right thing or we just drop it. I'm sure the county over the many years, I've only been in here for a year and a half, but this is a drop in the bucket to the money that gets spent throughout the county or through other grants or whatever. But just for the record, I would like you to know that I support it. So.
Okay. Further comments?
I just have a question, Judge. I had heard that there were there were only a couple of schools that were eligible for this, but all of our schools in the county are eligible.
All the schools are eligible because they qualify based upon the criteria of the grant itself and the distribution. Now, the way that it flows, and Ken jump in or Jacob, either one, for clarification. The city or the county is the only eligible grantee through which the money can flow. The school districts cannot pursue it independently of themselves because the allocation has been relegated to only cities and only counties. There's only 2 school districts that do not fall under the jurisdiction of a city, which is Sperger and Warren. So they are absolutely dependent upon any pursuit of this grant money through our action. They can't even say, hey, we'll just do it ourselves. They are dependent upon us. So, Ken, is there anything else that
Well,
you...
just to add to that, because if you look at Conneaut and Chester, almost specifically, those districts are way bigger than the city limits. So, and again, part of number 2 item on the agenda on the team is how to dispense this. But if you start looking at population of a district, not students, but population of the district, those areas that are outside the city could be part of this plan because we can't really give it to the cities, they got their own money. But again, it would go to the education side on that. So it does impact all 5 school districts. I will say this on the Chester side, we will not impact the Polk County side. That actually be kind of like double dipping. We're not going to go there. But on the Conneaut side, you know, how much of y'all's district in Conneaut is outside of the city limits of 600, right? Or Conneaut, I mean, a big chunk. So that's how this allotment also impacts all 4 counties, all 5 districts, not just the 2 that are solely in unincorporated areas.
Ken, what I'd add to that, Judge, and maybe this is, I can see Commissioner Nash's table, so I know what he's looking at. because the cities can also apply, it is a bigger pot of money than we think it is. Because the cities, the way this allocation was made is the county is eligible for a prorated amount. So we've got 21,000 residents. Those residents that are in the city limits go to the city. We are only responsible as a county for those in unincorporated areas. So that's about 15,000 people. So our amount, the 879 or whatever that is, our amount is based on the 15,000. Those folks who live within the city limits, that's a different pool of money than that 879. So it is more money than we're thinking.
And to add on to that, and full disclosure, two of the cities, the very small ones, Coney and Chester, have, and have actually, I know one of them's already sent their letter about us participating or managing their small amounts. One's 33, one's 16,000 total. Between the two of us, 48. They don't have any infrastructure. I mean, plain simple. Chester and Coney don't. Their city doesn't have any infrastructure. So the county would manage that 16 and that 33, and we would manage that also through those schools. With Coney and Chester, again, I would say, because neither one of those cities really have any expense to COVID, so probably the vast majority of their money would go to I haven't seen their expenses, so I can't speak on this 100%, but I can tell you, I've given them everything they've got, and they haven't had to pay it down for it, through what I've received as emergency management. So the bulk of, I think their money should go to their local schools within the city limits. That's why we're not including them when we look at the school district. We exclude them, completely exclude those outside the city limits for Woodville, Chester, and Coney.
Just a point, for where Jacob sits, he's the point person, just as everybody understands. Tatum was restructured. They put it under the A&M system. They identified all of the agents in the state of Texas as being a point of information flow, of which Jacob is. This Monty Dozier that Jacob is referencing, he's charged with the responsibility of the educating, of the interpretation of this information to the counties by way of Tatum underneath the A&M system itself. So to his comment a little bit earlier, and I think that this is valuable for all of us, we don't know if they will rule in that behalf or not. It would be nice if they do. It's possible that there's a lot of pressure that they are under to make that decision just because it's the right thing to do. But at the end of the day, we really don't know for sure, but there's hope. There's hope that the decision today would rule. Now, a point that Ken did not bring up that is valuable is this first 20% has a designated activity accountability to it, and everything past this, the remaining amount beyond the 175,802 toward the 879 is going to have to be reimbursement by invoice. You turn that invoice in, you apply for reimbursement, they'll look at it, they'll say it meets criteria or it doesn't, send it back to you. So you're on your own. One comment that came up as a result of this is a relationship document between the county and the school districts so that if there is an ineligible expense, it doesn't come back upon the county if that happens. And I think that the school districts would probably, they totally get that anyhow, because TEA has been pushing at all of these discussions that they've had. Get with your counties, get with your cities, pursue this money, it's there for you. They're urging them. And so that 80%, Ken, if you will, speak to that any more other than what I've said as far as just the reimbursement back.
Well, let me start with 20%.
Okay.
20% after we spend that 175, whatever it is.
Yeah.
We then submit all those invoices and they bless it or curse it. If they bless it, we're good. Then we can apply for more. If they curse it, they'll say, okay, of this 179, 130 were valid expenses. These other 45, they don't count. So we have to spend another 45 to get to the 20% But surely after the first 179, it is purely reimbursement based on what we say we bought. Not, we're gonna do this, we don't get money unless we produce invoices and receipts that we have bought it, and then they will say, yep, it's good, here's your money back.
What we've observed through the years is that the allocation set aside for Tyler County is the $879,000. Whatever we don't expense is gonna go back into a pool. And they'll have another formula, and they'll figure out who has an appetite that wants the remaining amount of what we didn't utilize in our allocation. So it's to our benefit to get as much qualified as possible. Gentlemen, is it possible that we might have some accounting or some documentation expense to manage this particular grant? Absolutely. So that's going to be something that we will have to address, because there's got to be documents that the county has to maintain and process. Commissioner?
Jacob?
Yes.
Ken, is there any, administration fees associated with this?
I haven't found them, but I haven't read all of the document.
I haven't found it either. I haven't found it either.
To my knowledge, no.
I haven't seen it.
But, I mean, I hate to promise anything
I
covers
haven't
it, but to
seen
my
it.
knowledge, no.
Where normally on these grants, there's a 5-6% administration fee.
Right.
No, to my knowledge, I have not seen that.
Sure.
It has to be, it can't like be, let's say a school nurse.
Right.
They can't turn in her salary only unless she's worked overtime with COVID-related
Right.
activities. If they're normal work hours, she wouldn't be able, they wouldn't be able to claim that. It's gotta be above and beyond what the regular duties are.
Right. Okay, yeah.
One thing I would like to say, she touched on it with salaries. If you had this in your budget last year, you can't do anything. If it is pre-budgeted money, you can't do anything with this. Okay, it has to be above and beyond, that's important for those of y'all that are buying Chromebooks. If it was, and I'm just using that example that came up twice, if you had in your budget about 200 Chromebooks, you're buying 200 Chromebooks, this grant's not buying those 200.
But
That's-
Ken,
that's
there's a question still out there that has not been addressed yet. We budget for disasters, but our disasters have been in the classifications other than public health disaster. So this is a public health disaster. Is there a consideration that because this is a different type of disaster than what we would have normally planned for? Because we wouldn't have, we don't know that yet. It's possible, but we can't for sure say it's either allocated and to include, so you're just gonna have to use your emergency planning money that you already have for all of your other disasters that you normally experience as part of your public health disaster here. So I think that it's fair to say that there's still some of this that needs some clarification, like Jacob was talking about, that Mr. Dozier said this morning, is here's where we are. So, anything else?
Well, no.
So do we,
You might want to know that we have until December 31st of this year to meet the criteria in our expenses and reimbursement.
Okay.
That's
I
what
don't know if y'all could all hear that. Do you have your mic? We have until December 31st, she said.
Right, because the grant, this grant goes from March 1st to December 31st. And so we have all this year, and we don't know what else is gonna happen with COVID, obviously. But we have the rest of the year to meet the 75%, to be able to get the 20%.
Thanks.
so, it was my understanding that they've already sent us money, then,
We have. We moved in that direction here several weeks ago. More than that, Ken, was it a month or so ago?
I was probably when we did that.
Early June. And honestly, guys, as Ken said, it just fell through the cracks. We thought, okay, it looks like that we probably ought to at least pursue it. So I think Leanne and maybe maybe Megan, and we had a one sheet, couple of questions, sign here, press hard, 3 copies, send in. And it was like, okay, we got that. Now let's go take care of another. it just fell through cracks. There was nothing, like Ken said, to be abusive. But again, it just says that the notice of subrecipient grant award remains on offer until the fully executed copy of this grant agreement is received by TIA, Texas Department of Emergency Management, which obviously is why the action's before us today. Hey,
And that's where that 75% comes out, is in the agreement it's on page 6 of the agreement. The 75% of what is going to be spent on medical expenses, public health expenses, and payroll expenses. And I guess my question was, is the 20% that they sent us, the 175, does that 175 fall under the same 75% has to go to medical and 25% can be spent wherever we want to?
That's the way I understand
Yeah, I would say.
Jackie said that's the way she understands
it.
it.
But I am waiting to get clarification.
And it needs to be clarified because some of those expenses that we've had should qualify under the first three categories.
Yeah, well, so far, the county has spent, according to Ken, we talked about it, about $55,000. And if every bit of that money was certified in the 75% on the medical side, public health side, that would leave about $13,750 for us to allot out or spend any way we wanted to. That's what the label right now is, $13,750. If that 20% falls under the same restrictions as the rest of the grant, when I go to the 75 medical, the 25 open.
I think you can spend 100%, and correct me, Jackie, we can spend 100% on anything, but the maximum of 25 right now, as we see in the agreements, for electronic connectivity things. So we could spend it, all 100% of what we spent, Stephen, if approved, to go toward that. Does that matter? Do you get it that way, Ms.
Well,
Miller?
and, you know, obviously.
So, but do we have to spend 75% more on medical
We don't
to
have to
meet
spend any.
that 175,000?
No.
If we spend 175,000 and add about 25%, how much money are we gonna have to spend on medical to satisfy this grant agreement?
We don't, no, it's separate. You don't have to meet the 75% to get the 20%.
Yes, you do.
No, I'm saying, if you spend 20% of your grant allocation on the 25%, so we spend 175,000 on the open-ended, wherever we want to spend it at, how much money is the county gonna have to spend on the health and medical side to meet the agreement on 1.5 on the agreement? I don't know if,
Well, Stephen, that's
so if
what
we spend
I'm,
170,
that's what I'm waiting to get clarification from Tina, to make sure that we absolutely understand what our requirement is, so that we can give the other 25% to those 4 through 6 categories.
and I'm just trying to find somebody in the audience that knew enough about math that could do that pretty quick. If we spend 175,000 on, or 25%, how much money do we have to spend on the medical side?
Cody, you're the CPA among us. You calculating back there or?
No, not calculating.
Okay. He's not calculating.
Judge, can
Yes.
I make a comment?
Yes, sir.
With all that being said, and I just want to speak, and I know this is a little out of turn from parliamentary wise, but those are all questions that the committee can make sure it's taken care of. I want to commend Ken's recommendation there that y'all send this to committee, because the committee would be responsible for making sure the money was spent right, Ken? I mean, that would be the,
Yes.
so I mean, that's those questions can be answered. I don't think we have to answer all those questions today, is what I'm getting at.
It seems like,
And the treasurer may have a different
If we
opinion.
spend the 175, we're gonna have to spend $500,000 to meet the 75% requirement. If we spend our 25% up front on anything, then we're obligated through the agreement to spend 75% more on medical side.
I don't see that. What I read, I don't see that.
I'm understanding.
But I'm waiting for answers.
Jackie's waiting for an answer to that.
We agree to spend a minimum of 75% off its allotment, that's
No, we-
off the allotment, on the categories of medical expense, public health expense, and payroll expense for employees dedicated to mitigating or responding to the public emergency.
But they'll determine that when they get to.
You don't have to spend 100% of our allotment.
I know we don't, but if we spend 175,000 of it on the 25% that's not medical, how much are we gonna have to spend on medical?
I don't think that's stipulated. I didn't see it stipulated in any agreement.
It's on one point, it's on page 6 of the agreement with Keating.
I understand what you're saying.
75% of it's allotment that's spent.
If we, I think what he means is,
So if you spend it, 75% of what you spend, if we spend $1, 75 cents of that has to go to the medical side of it. 25 cents can go to wherever. So if you spend $100,000, $75,000 has to go to medical, 25,000 can go to wherever we want it.
the question
So far,
would be,
we spent 55,000, and if this qualifies as all medical, we have the $13,750 that we can spend anywhere we want.
And Stephen, to speak to that, this is Jacob again. Talking to Monty this morning, he said that an isolation facility like Warren has put in absolutely falls into the 75. So it's not all 25.
Yeah, is that money that's already paid for out of another,
No.
thing or anything? We gotta be careful of that, and that's what, we're not, you can't use this money to cover something else that would fall with grant money.
We'd have to ask Mr. Ling that, but I don't believe so. I believe this was planned on it being grant money.
Yes. The portable building is going to be purchased with grant money. From this, we also bought some trifold screens for every student in our district so that each one can be separated. We also have 3 CNAs that we have hired in as additional help for our nurses, specifically for COVID, that they would be the ones that would take the students like to the isolation building, sit with them in the isolation building. So all of their expenses would also be additional COVID expenses, separate from the technology part. And so there's a lot of expenses that we're doing that we didn't even put in this, but if it needs to be moved over, we've even also thought about additional vehicles that we have. If we have to transport the students separately going home, are those vehicles specifically purchased for COVID, like a little bus or a separate car that carries an individual student?
And it would be my opinion as somebody that's looked at it all, everything Mr. Lang mentioned would fall under one of those top 3 categories.
Madam Treasurer.
Yes. First of all, I'd just like to say, I think all of us here want to help the school districts, and that is our intention, and go Warriors. Football game. But the process here is what I question, because today, if we say yes, which I think that most of us are leaning yes, we say yes, and then we set our committee. The committee then has to meet, and then has to decide, and then has to come back to court. How is that going to help the school districts today? Because nothing can be said today as far as giving them their money or knowing how much that they have.
I don't think you can answer that question today. Today, all we can
I know,
say
that's
is
what
that
I'm
we want
saying.
to pursue it.
And then.
We cannot, the fact that the connectivity program may get to use that 80%. That's what it's all about. I'm
No, I
afraid.
totally get that, Martin. That's what my question is. How does that help you today? If the deadline is today, do you have to have a monetary amount to know how much goes in, or just that?
I'll take whatever I can get.
But that's what I'm saying. We can't give you an amount today without that committee meeting.
But we have a good idea. It may not be, even if it's only 25% of the amount of the allotment.
But if we're deciding that we're gonna do that by 5 school districts, and we all bring that together, and then the committee meets and says, those 5 school districts, based on population, Warren should get this amount, or Palmdale should get this amount. I don't know how that can help you today, sending in for your deadline, because that has to come back to court.
What if we approach it like this? Is Tyler County going to participate in this program or not? maybe just as a first step, and say, because we haven't spent any money. Everything is still in the account. True? Is that true? Okay, so it's sitting there. We just satisfy the deadline today. And then we say, okay, committee, let's see if we can bring in all of the most current information flowing down from the state through TDM and put our heads together and say, okay, my suspicion is every school district has already begun to address the needs of their students, whether they get any money back or not. It would be delightful if there is money available that will underwrite that cost. But this at least gets us in the ballgame and the hunt, whatever you want to call it, to just simply make the formal acknowledgement that today, now we might choose to send it all back, next week, but today we're going to participate to the fullest extent of the allocation of $879,010 to Tyler County, and then figure what the distribution is from that point on. Now, I'm not sure that any of us in here, we may have to get some kind of outside counsel or some kind of specialized type of guidance to walk us through this process, but
I mean, if we have to spend the 80% to get the 20%, school districts are gonna have to, they're gonna have to be very much a part of that process, because Tyler County not even spending that money, we don't have, what?
Unfortunately, Judge, to speak to Leanne's point, and I hate this for the schools, because y'all know that's where my heart's in the school business. I don't think y'all can offer them anything but hope today. And I don't think you can make a promise of a certain amount of money. I think all you can offer them is hope. I think it's a very likely hope.
I think what we can offer them, Jacob, is an acknowledgement that without us, they don't have any hope of getting anything out of this allocation. But if we at least take a first step, then let's see how much of that hope distributes out by percentage or numbers or formulas, or this is allowed, this is not allowed. It just says, okay, there's $879,000 here. Let's see how much of it is qualified for.
I think I just.
Before any funds are spent, we have to go back to court and approve that the expenditure. Is that right, where the money goes out of this grant? Would that be right?
Yes, I mean, we also need the resolution where the court, approves giving the judge the signature authority when we apply for reimbursement. But the court does have to approve all expenditures before we pay.
Okay.
Then we follow the guidelines of the grant as to what qualifies. Does that answer your question?
Yes. I mean, if we approve today, somebody can't go out there and write a check.
No.
It has to go back to the court.
Correct.
Spend it out.
Can I ask a question?
Sir?
And I'm addressing this to Dr. Boyd. And it affects the rest of you superintendents too. Vote to go ahead and agree on this today. Does that help your deadline? That you're talking about this afternoon? I mean,
Yes.
yes, but just kind of shaky, right?
Yeah, it's not 100% that we're gonna have every expense covered.
Right.
We're gonna have more of it covered than zero. If it were a no, I wouldn't turn this in. With a yes, I feel like I could turn this in.
That's.
Call the question.
All right, there's a call for the question. All in favor, aye? Any opposed? Okay, and it is unanimous. Thank you. Now, gentlemen, let's go to the appointing of a committee to determine how the funds are divided among the participating entities. I'll defer back to Ken in this regard. Is there an idea that you have given some thought to regarding the formation of that you'd want to offer to the court at this time?
And after some discussion today, I'm not going to say this isn't extremely modifiable. A court member, one of the court members, a school member, one of the schools. I hadn't planned on all five, but after some of the discussion today, may be worth having two. I think it should be an odd number. Let me start by saying that for votes, but, and then some general community members. And that can be anybody. I mean, I have no, Jackie, Leanne,
Yeah, I
One
would
of them
like to see
two.
both of them on it.
Both of them, okay. 7 people, we did those two plus 2 school representatives, and I would do separate schools. And then 3, 1 from the court, that's 5. That's.
Could you repeat what is?
Sure. He is suggesting that a committee consisting of 7, so there will be an odd number for voting purposes. And he's suggesting that a couple representatives from the school districts, a representative from the court, possibly a couple of other officials, treasurer, auditor, be a part of that. But I think today all we're doing is just saying we're going to appoint a committee. We don't have to do it today. We're just saying establishing the appointment of a committee to determine how the funds are established. So we can come back.
Would it be too much trouble for all 5 superintendents to be on this committee? Or would it?
No,
Or
I mean, it can
representative?
be more than that, just a lot of times, John, a lot of people know the bigger the meeting, the kind of the less you get accomplished. So, I mean, I
There
don't
needs to be
think
somebody
anybody's-
from each district.
Yeah, I think that-
I mean, I don't see not doing that.
So everybody will have a representative.
Right.
Right. I said this is open for discussion. That's kind of what I had in mind. Odd number just for both purposes. So a rep from each school, that's 5. These 2, that's 7. A court member, that's 8. And more than 1 court member if y'all would like. We need at least 1 court member
Yeah,
on this.
7, you need a preacher.
Y'all didn't hear it, sorry. So we're at 9. We can stay with the 9 or get a couple more. I had me on it, but that's not required, that's a,
I think that would be appropriate.
I've been the biggest mouth about this for the last 2 months.
So if you got 5 superintendents or representatives, you, Leanne and Jackie is 8, and then 1 court member would be 9, so you'd have an odd one.
Y'all, everybody good? I mean, that's up to y'all, not to me, I'm asking what to me. Let me say this, as our A&M tie with direct line to Bonnie Dozier, I'm not sure him not being on it would be, because of his tie with that. He might have called him with the question of your meeting.
And this is what I was gonna say, even in an ex officio fashion,
Right.
just so that we can get money involved if needed.
With questions.
I mean, I don't have a voting member, but I mean, just so we've got money involved,
Advise.
even in, even in ex officio fashion.
Well, that's Ken.
Or do we need a motion to,
Yes, please, Mike.
I'll make a motion that we appoint a committee to determine how funds are divided among participating entities.
Would you also like to say a committee consisting of 9 members?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And 1 ex officio.
And 1 ex officio? Okay. All right, there is a motion. Is there a second, gentlemen? Thank you. Comments or questions? All in favor, aye? And it is unanimous. All 4 commissioners voted for the motion. Okay, that takes care of the 2 items. Thank you all. This will conclude. We have no executive session for this portion of the agenda today. So thank you all for your presence. We're going to be going into a delayed start to a workshop following this. And gentlemen, is it your pleasure that you want to take a few minutes of break before we start? And then please say, we will. Yes, we do need.
Motion to adjourn.
There's a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, so we have a second to adjourn from the special meeting. All in favor, aye? Okay, we stand adjourned. Okay.
And I'll call back in. How long?
Gentlemen, yeah. Mike saying 10, but back. All right, took care of that. I tell you, Mike, I got so many papers here.